the bustling heart of a city, where skyscrapers kissed the clouds and luxury cars hummed on asphalt rivers. A chilling tale of love, betrayal, and a woman's fight for her very soul was about to unfold. Amara, draped in gold and ivory, stood at the precipice of what was meant to be her most joyous day. Yet her heart thrummed with a dread that promised a future darker than any night. This wasn't merely a wedding. It was the lavish coronation of a gilded cage, orchestrated by powerful families and sealed with a kiss that tasted of possession. Tonight, as the city lights blurred into a seductive haze, she would discover that some blessings are curses in disguise, and freedom, a currency more precious than all the gold of her husband's empire. The air in the opulent bridal suite hummed, with the chatter of bridesmaids, their laughter a distant melody against the heavy silence in Amara's heart. Her bright gold-trimmed wedding gown, a masterpiece of silk and lace, felt less like attire and more like a shimmering shroud. As the makeup artist applied the final touches, Amara stared at her reflection, seeing not a bride, but a stranger, adorned in a facade of joy. Her best friend, Innie, nudged her with a smile that barely masked her concern. "Amara, you're marrying Enkay, one of the most eligible bachelors in Lagos. Do you know how many girls dream of standing in your shoes?" Amara forced a smile, knowing Innie meant well, but understanding little of the prickling unease that had become her constant companion. Enkay, a man of immense wealth and influence, hailed from a family as old and respected as the city's ancient bronze sculptures. Their parents, guided by the weight of tradition and the allure of powerful alliances, had arranged the marriage, convinced it was a perfect union. Amara had barely known him before their engagement. Their few brief encounters, always chaperoned, offered glimpses of a charming, confident man. Yet, a disquieting sensation lingered from his gaze, a way he looked at her that made her skin prickle, as if she were not a person, but a valuable asset to be owned, to be possessed. As her mother's voice, full of maternal pride, called out, "Time to go, my dear. Don't keep your husband waiting." Amara swallowed hard, her gilded cage beckoning. As she walked towards the man awaiting her, a chilling question whispered in her soul. Was she walking towards happiness, or into an inescapable prison? The answer would reveal itself sooner than she imagined. The wedding was a spectacle, a grand affair that rippled through the city's elite circles for weeks. Guests, resplendent in designer attire, filled the lavish hall, while a live band played infectious high-life music that set the older guests swaying. The air was thick with the aroma of spicy jollof rice, succulent grilled fish, and expensive perfumes, a symphony of luxury that only amplified Amara's internal discord. She sat beside Enkay at the elevated couple's table, her polite smile stretched taut as a drum as well-wishers showered them with gifts and endless advice. Enkay's hand rested possessively on hers, his grip firm, a silent declaration of ownership, as if he feared she might vanish like a wisp of smoke. Each time his gaze met hers, a burning intensity unsettled her. Too much, too soon. When it was time for the celebratory dance, Enkay pulled her close, his hands gripping her waist with bruising possessiveness. He leaned down, his lips brushing her ear. "I can't wait to have you all to myself tonight," he murmured, his voice a low growl. Amara's stomach twisted into a knot, and she merely nodded, unsure of what else to do. Hours later, they arrived at Enkay's sprawling mansion, a fortress of opulence nestled within one of Lagos's most exclusive estates. The moment the heavy oak door shut behind them, Enkay turned, his eyes ablaze with a hungry look that made her heart pound. "I've waited long enough," he declared, reaching for her. Amara was not naive. She understood the expectations of a wife, but there was something almost desperate, predatory, in his touch, a raw urgency that made her skin crawl. That night, she barely slept, caught in a relentless cycle of his demands. By morning, she was a fractured spirit, exhausted, sore, and profoundly bewildered. Amara clung to the fragile hope that things would settle, that the relentless intensity of their wedding night was merely an anomaly. But a week into her marriage, the chilling realization set in. She was gravely mistaken. Enkay was insatiable, his demands on her body constant. Morning, afternoon, night. Her existence, it seemed, was solely for his pleasure. There was no time to rest, no space to breathe. He would wake her in the dead of night, his hands already roaming, his need urgent and unyielding, even when exhaustion gnawed at her, even when she whispered pleas for sleep. He would merely chuckle, his words a dismissive mantra. A good wife must always satisfy her husband. His words, echoing the unspoken tenets of a patriarchal society, crushed her spirit. She tried to reason with him, to explain her need for time, her weariness, the profound drain on her spirit. But Enkay would only smile, his eyes devoid of understanding, dismissing her words with a possessive kiss, and the chilling whisper, "You'll get used to it." Days bled into weeks, and Amara began to dread the encroaching darkness of night. She avoided his gaze during the day, fearing that even a fleeting glance might ignite his relentless desire. Her once bright laughter vanished, replaced by a hollow silence. Dark circles bloomed under her eyes, mirroring the shadows in her soul. Desperate, she sought solace from her mother, hoping for an understanding ear. "Mama," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I'm tired. I don't think I can do this." Her mother frowned, the weight of tradition heavy in her words. "Do what? This marriage? Your father was the same, my dear. A woman must endure. Just give him what he wants, and he will love you more." The words extinguished the last flicker of hope. As the luxury car ferried her back to Enkay's mansion, one desolate thought settled in her mind. She was utterly, irrevocably trapped. The realization that her mother offered no solace, only the familiar suffocating mantra of endure, hardened something within Amara. She knew, with a certainty that chilled her to the bone, that she could not continue living like this. Each night was a battle she lost. Each morning she woke weaker, a mere vessel for Enkay's insatiable desires. Her body was no longer her own. He took what he wanted, when he wanted, without a second thought. Desperate, she turned to Chinny, meeting her at a quiet, upscale cafe, a sanctuary away from prying eyes. "You look terrible," Chinny exclaimed, concern etching lines around her eyes. Amara stirred her drink, a bitter taste filling her mouth. "I don't sleep anymore, Chinny. He doesn't let me rest. I can't breathe. I feel like I'm dying slowly." Chinny's eyes widened. "Are you saying he forces you?" Amara shook her head, tears blurring her vision. "It's not outright force, but it's as if I have no choice. He won't take no for an answer. He acts like my body belongs to him, and nothing else matters." Chinny sighed, her fingers drumming a restless rhythm on the polished table. "Amara, this is serious. Have you talked to him?" Amara let out a bitter laugh. "I tried. He just says it's my duty as a wife." Chinny lowered her voice, scanning the sophisticated patrons. "Maybe you should speak to someone. A therapist, a lawyer, anyone." Amara bit her lip. "You know my family won't support that. My mother already told me to endure." A heavy silence stretched between them, punctuated only by the clinking of cutlery. "Then what will you do?" Eni finally asked, her voice laced with dread. Amara didn't know the answer, but she knew this. Something had to shatter before she herself broke completely. Amara began a silent rebellion, a desperate dance of avoidance. She lingered in the mansion's vast kitchen, concocting elaborate meals she had no appetite for. She feigned incapacitating headaches and even faked menstrual cramps. Anything to gain a moment of respite from Ekong's relentless pursuit. But his obsession was a hydra, cutting off one head only for another to grow. Nothing worked. One evening, after a tense dinner, she excused herself, citing an urgent need for solitude, and retreated to a secluded guest room, locking the door firmly behind her. For the first time in weeks, a fragile sense of relief washed over her, and she curled onto the bed, yearning for a single peaceful night's sleep. But just as slumber began to claim her, a violent bang shook the door, a thunderclap in the oppressive silence. "Amara, open this door now." Ekong's voice, sharp with unbridled anger, sliced through the door. She froze, her heart hammering against her ribs. "Ekong, please! I just want to sleep here tonight." Another deafening bang, closer this time, vibrated through the wood. "Are you mad? Open this door before I break it down." Tears welled in her eyes. She knew the inevitability of his wrath, the futility of resistance. He would not stop until she yielded. Her hands trembled as she turned the lock. The door flew open, and Ekong stormed in, his face a contorted mask of rage. "What is wrong with you?" she begged, her voice barely a whisper. "Please, I just need rest. I can't keep up with this." He grabbed her arm, pulling her close, his voice a menacing hiss. "You're my wife. You don't get to decide when and when not to do your duty." In that moment, something deep inside Amara snapped. The illusion of marriage shattered, revealing the stark reality of ownership. And she, in a sudden, fierce surge of defiance, refused to be owned. As Ekong pulled her toward the bed, a scream tore from her throat. "Enough!" she shrieked, shoving him with all her strength. "I am not a machine. I am not a toy. I am a human being, Ekong." He looked stunned, as if the thought had never once crossed his mind. For the first time since their wedding day, Amara saw a flicker of fear in his eyes. And in that terrifying, exhilarating moment, she knew she had to leave. And this time, it would be forever. The taste of defiance was exhilarating, but the reality of her situation hit Amara hard. She knew that a simple walkout would be met with scorn from her parents and forceful retrieval by Ekong's powerful family, a double disgrace. She needed a plan, as cunning and swift as a hunter. The next morning, while Ekong was engrossed in his empire, Amara meticulously searched for help. Online, she discovered a women's support center, a beacon of hope in the digital wilderness. Her voice, hushed, her hands trembling, she dialed the number. A compassionate counselor listened patiently, then delivered a truth Amara had never dared to imagine. There were legal protections for women in her situation. "But he's my husband," Amara whispered, a lifetime of patriarchal indoctrination echoing in her words. "Doesn't that mean he has the right?" The counselor's voice was firm, cutting through generations of silence. "No one has the right to take away your consent, Amara. You deserve to be safe." That night, Fueled by newfound resolve, Amara began gathering evidence. She secretly recorded their conversations, saving messages where Enkay dismissed her pain, and even documented the bruises his possessive grip sometimes left on her arms. She confided in Ini, her best friend, who, without a moment's hesitation, pledged unwavering support. "Whatever you need," Ini vowed. Together, they forged a meticulous escape plan. Amara would make her move when Enkay traveled for a business trip the following week. She would take only what was essential, a ghost vanishing into the bustling city before anyone could stop her. For the first time in what felt like a lifetime, a fragile seed of hope blossomed in her chest. But she knew the true test of her resolve was yet to come. The night before Enkay's departure, Amara lay awake, her senses heightened, waiting for his breathing to deepen into the rhythm of sleep. His arm, a heavy chain, was draped possessively over her. Holding her breath, she gently slid out of bed, a silent shadow in the darkness. Her small, pre-packed bag, hidden beneath the guest-room bed, was swiftly retrieved. Just as her fingers brushed the door, the bed creaked. Her heart stopped. Enkay stirred, mumbled something incoherent, then turned over. Amara didn't wait. She unlocked the door and moved with a silent urgency, slipping out of the mansion. The gate, thanks to Ini's discreet bribe to the guard, was unlocked. Ini's car waited down the street, a dark silhouette of freedom. As soon as Amara got in, Ini hit the accelerator, leaving the gilded cage behind. They drove in silence for a while, the city lights blurring past. "Are you okay?" Ini finally asked. Amara exhaled, staring out at the vibrant, freeing streets of Lagos. "I don't know," she admitted, a tear tracing a path down her cheek. "But I'm free." 6 months had passed since Amara fled Enkay's mansion. 6 months since she shed the suffocating weight of a marriage that had drained her soul. Her new life, though simpler, was fiercely her own. She worked at Chi's Boutique, a renowned clothing store in the city, owned by Chidi Wosu. A successful businessman in his late 30s, Chidi was known for his impeccable style and disarming charm. When Amara first met him, she braced herself for another arrogant, entitled rich man. But Chidi was nothing like Enkay. He was kind, patient, and gentle in a way that initially made her wary. But slowly, she allowed her guarded walls to crumble. "Morning, Amara," his deep voice broke through her reverie. She turned to see him by the register, effortlessly handsome in a crisp white shirt and fitted navy trousers. His deep brown skin, well-groomed facial hair, and eyes that seemed to study her even when not directly looking, exuded a quiet strength. "Good morning, sir," she replied, a small, genuine smile gracing her lips. He chuckled. "Haven't I told you to call me Chidi?" She hesitated, then nodded. "Good morning, Chidi." His smile widened, a warmth radiating from him that felt foreign, yet comforting. Chidi had been unfailingly good to her. He never pressured her, simply made her feel seen. When he sensed her lost in thought, he'd crack a joke or tell a ridiculous story about a demanding customer. "You know, I had a dream last night," he said, crossing his arms. "In it, you finally smiled at me like I wasn't just your boss." Amara rolled her eyes, but a small, involuntary laugh escaped her lips. "There it is," Chidi clapped. "My day is made." She shook her head, turning away to hide the blush creeping up her cheeks. Was he flirting? She wasn't ready for anything beyond friendship, or so she told herself. Days melted into weeks, and Amara found herself increasingly comfortable around Chidi. He was Enkay's antithesis, patient where Enkay was demanding, respectful where Enkay was controlling. One day, after closing, he offered to drive her home, Not as your boss, he clarified, leaning against his sleek black SUV, but as a friend who worries about you taking taxis so late. She hesitated, then accepted. It became a cherished ritual. Long conversations in his car, where she unearthed her dormant dream of being an artist. He listened, truly listened, and one day presented her with professional paintbrushes and a canvas. "It's not much," he said softly. "Just a gift for a friend." But the way his eyes held hers whispered a different truth, a promise of something more profound. Amara's heart didn't fall for Chidi in one grand swoop, but through a constellation of small, tender moments. He checked on her constantly, remembering every minute detail, her coffee preference, her aversion to loud noises, the nervous habit of touching her necklace pendant. He never rushed her, never demanded, and it was this profound respect that slowly, gently, coaxed her heart to open. One evening, after a particularly long day at the boutique, he took her to a small, cozy restaurant. It wasn't a lavish affair, just a quiet corner, grilled fish and fresh juice, but it felt like the most intimate dinner she'd ever had. "Are you happy here, Amara?" he asked, his gaze gentle but searching. She hesitated, then a genuine smile bloomed. "I think I am." "Good," he said, reaching across the table to brush his fingers against hers. She didn't pull away. Weeks blurred into a comfortable rhythm, and Chidi became more than a boss, more than a friend. He showered her with thoughtful gifts, sent her flowers, and took her on weekend excursions, calling her his queen, making her feel like the most precious woman in the world. For the first time in an eternity, Amara felt loved, cherished, and safe. She dared to believe this happiness was real, that she deserved this fragile peace. But then, as the morning sun streamed into her apartment, a chilling message from an unknown number shattered her newfound serenity. "You look happy. Enjoy it while it lasts." Her heart froze. It couldn't be him, could it? She tried to dismiss it, but a cold dread slithered up her spine. Enkay was watching. At work, an uneasy feeling clung to her like a shroud. Chidi noticed, his hand warm on her lower back. "You okay? You seem off." "I'm fine," she lied, turning back to the dresses. She couldn't tell him, couldn't drag her dark past into this new, fragile light. But the signs escalated. A black car, parked across the street every evening, eyes she could feel on her back. That night, she barely slept. A few days later, during dinner at Chidi's house, his phone buzzed. She watched as his expression shifted, the warmth in his eyes replaced by something unreadable. "Chidi? What's wrong?" Slowly, he turned the phone to her. Her stomach dropped. It was a picture of her, on her wedding night, locked in an embrace, with Enkay. The message below it sent a chill down her spine. "Your woman used to be mine. Here's proof." She felt sick. Chidi's grip tightened on his phone. "Who sent this?" I don't know," she stammered. "Amara," he said, his voice dangerously sharp. "Who is this man?" There was no hiding anymore. With a deep, shaky breath, Amara confessed everything to Chidi. The arranged marriage, Enkay's relentless abuse, her desperate escape, and her flight for survival. By the time she finished, Chidi was silent, his jaw clenched, a mask of pain and anger distorting his usually gentle features. "You should have told me," he said, his voice strained. "I was afraid," she whispered, tears stinging her eyes. "Afraid you'd leave if you knew the truth." He exhaled, running a hand over his face. I need to think. Her stomach twisted. Chidi, please. He shook his head. Not now, Amara. I need time. He walked towards the balcony, leaving her alone at the table, a chilling premonition wrapping its hands around her throat. This was only the beginning. Ekong was coming for her, and he wouldn't stop until he destroyed everything she held dear. Chidi didn't call the next morning, or the day after. Amara clung to the hope that he just needed time, but deep down, she felt the irreparable shift. Something fragile between them had shattered, twisted by Ekong's insidious interference. For 2 agonizing days, she woke to a silent phone, her heart aching. Then, on the 3rd night, a buzz. Chidi. She answered immediately. Chidi? A long pause. Then 2 cold words. Come over. No warmth, no teasing, just those 2 stark syllables. She knew, with crushing certainty, this wouldn't be good. At his house, the tension was palpable. He sat on the couch, his back rigid, hands clenched. On the table, a stack of photos. Her, breath hitched. The top one. Her, asleep in bed, taken from Ekong's phone. She flipped through them, each picture a violation. Intimate moments only a husband should have witnessed. He sent these to you? She whispered, her voice barely audible. Chidi nodded. Every morning for the past 3 days. Chidi, He cut her off. He's in your past, right? Then why does he still have this much power over you? She looked up, her eyes pleading. I didn't know he would do this. I thought I was free. He ran a hand over his face, exhaling sharply. Amara, I love you. But how do I deal with this? Every time I close my eyes, I see you with him in his bed. Tears burned her eyes. That wasn't love, Chidi. That was survival. I know. His jaw tightened. But it doesn't change the fact that he's still here, still inside this relationship. She reached for him, but he pulled back, and the rejection wounded her more deeply than any physical blow. The messages continued, a relentless assault on their relationship. Ekong never contacted her directly. He didn't need to. He was slowly, methodically, ripping apart the happiness she had found. One evening, Chidi came home, rage simmering in his eyes. He called me today, he said, throwing his phone onto the couch. He told me I was playing with another man's wife, that I'd never be enough for you, that you'd always belong to him. Amara's heart pounded. And you believe him? Chidi turned, his face twisted with frustration. Of course not. But Amara, you have to see this from my side. Every single day I wake up to another part of your past with him. And no matter how much I love you, I can't erase it from my mind. She swallowed hard. So, what are you saying? He shook his head. I don't know. And in that moment, she knew. Ekong was winning. A week later, Amara arrived at Chidi's boutique after work. A fragile hope clinging to her that they could talk, that they could salvage what was left. But the moment she walked in, a cold dread seized her. Chidi, at the counter, glanced at her, and a chilling indifference passed through his eyes. Her stomach clenched. Chidi, she began, her voice trembling. Can we talk? He sighed, rubbing his temples, the gesture weary. Amara, I don't think this is working. The air in her lungs vanished. What? He looked up, his expression pained. I tried. I swear I did, but I can't live like this. Tears burned her eyes. You're letting him win. I'm not letting him do anything, Chidi snapped. his voice cracking. "I just can't handle waking up every day wondering what he's going to send next, wondering if I'll ever be enough for you when he's still hanging over us." Amara's breath hitched. "Chidi, please." He shook his head. "I love you, Amara, but love isn't enough. I can't do this anymore." Her heart shattered. She stared at him for a long moment, waiting for him to take it back. He didn't. Just like that, Ekong had won. Amara didn't remember getting home, didn't remember how long she sat in the darkness of her apartment, feeling her soul crumble. She had fought so hard, endured so much, only for Ekong to drag her back without ever laying a hand on her. Then her phone rang. She didn't need to check the caller ID. Slowly, she picked it up, pressing it to her ear. "Hello, my love?" Ekong's smooth voice purred. "I told you, didn't I? You belong to me." A tear slipped down her cheek. "What do you want?" she whispered, her voice raw. His chuckle sent a shiver down her spine. "Simple. Come home." Her hands clenched. She didn't want to. But what was left for her here? The man she loved was gone. Her fragile peace was shattered. She had nowhere else to go. So, she did the only thing she could. She packed her bags. For the second time in her life, Amara walked back into Ekong's arms, back to the lavish mansion that had become her cage. It wasn't supposed to happen this way. She had built a new life, found love, found happiness, but Ekong had ripped it all away. Chidi was gone, her dreams extinguished. The thought made her want to vomit. But what choice did she have? She had fought, she had tried, and in the end, she had lost. A sharp knock at the door. Ekong's driver. "Madam, Olga is waiting for you." Her breath caught. This was it. She grabbed her bag, stepped outside, and let him drive her away. The mansion, grand as she remembered, felt like a mausoleum. Tall glass windows, polished marble floors, chandeliers that glittered like captive stars. Every detail designed to impress. Yet, to Amara, it was a gilded grave. She sat on a plush couch, staring blankly at the wine in her trembling hands. The trembling, she knew, was a cocktail of fear, exhaustion, and the suffocating weight of her inescapable reality. She was back, trapped in the cage she had fought so fiercely to escape. And this time, the bars felt unbreakable. Ekong entered, draped in a silk robe, his eyes gleaming with triumphant possession. He regarded her like a king surveying his conquered kingdom. Slowly, he sat beside her, taking the glass from her numb fingers. Then, his touch, a terrifying caress against her cheek. "You'll never leave me again," he whispered, his breath warm, possessive. She flinched, and a flicker of amusement crossed his face. His fingers trailed down her cheek, tilting her face to meet his gaze. "You were always mine," he murmured. "You just forgot." What was there to say? She had fought for freedom, only to find herself back where she started, his captive queen. The next few days were a blur of expensive gifts, forced smiles at lavish dinners, and the hollow echo of his affection. Ekong acted as if she had never left, parading her around like a prized trophy, draping her in diamonds and silk. Amara played her part. She smiled, held his hand for the cameras, and let him whisper false promises of love. But inside, she withered. This wasn't love. It was ownership, a performance for the judging eyes of Lagos society. One evening, at an exclusive private club, she felt his lips against her ear. "You're not happy," he murmured, amusement lacing his tone. Why? She forced a brittle smile. I'm just tired. He chuckled. You'll adjust. The word, a bitter memory of her mother's counsel, twisted in her gut. That night, back in the hotel suite, Enkay, whiskey in hand, broke the silence. You're thinking about him, aren't you? Your little boyfriend? Chinny? Amara said nothing. You still love him, don't you? He mused. He was good to me, she whispered. And yet, you're here with me, he countered triumphantly. She hated him, hated how he always won, how he had ripped Chinny away, destroyed the one good thing in her life. Forget about him, Enkay said, his hand sliding around her waist. You're mine, and you always will be. Tears burned, but she had nothing left to fight with. She stood there, letting him hold her, letting him win. The next morning, he handed her a key. Our new home, he smiled. Time to stop playing and come back where you belong. The key, cold in her palm, was the final piece of the trap. This time, she wasn't sure if she would ever escape. The air in Enkay's mansion was a suffocating shroud, despite the opulent facade. Weeks blurred into a lifeless cycle. Amara was trapped, body, mind, and spirit. A prize displayed by a conqueror. Enkay's obsession, fueled by her brief taste of freedom, had intensified. He was relentless, demanding her presence morning, noon, and night, oblivious to her exhaustion, her emotional withdrawal. Amara, he'd said one evening as she tried to slip away, why are you avoiding me? You're my wife. You shouldn't be tired when I need you. His chuckle, low and menacing, chilled her. Her smile, a desperate attempt to pacify him, felt brittle, another piece of her shattering. Innie's visits had ceased, shut down by Enkay's cold assertion that Amara had everything she needed right here. Amara stopped calling, unwilling to put her friend in danger. One afternoon, a wave of despair so profound that she gasped for air crashed over her. I can't do this anymore, she whispered. A soft knock. It was Blessing, the housemaid. Madam, are you okay? Blessing asked, her brow furrowed. Amara forced a nod. I'm fine. Blessing hesitated, then stepped closer. You don't look fine, Ma. If you need anything, you can trust me. A desperate idea sparked in Amara's mind. If she couldn't escape, perhaps she could find a fragile peace. Blessing, Amara said, her voice trembling. Do you know anyone who can help me? Something to make Enkay calmer? Blessing's eyes widened, but she nodded slowly. Yes, madam. I know someone. Amara exhaled, a fragile hope unfurling in her chest. Please, Blessing. I need help before I lose myself completely. Blessing returned with a small, wrapped parcel. Inside, a jar of dark, powdery herbs, smelling faintly of bitter roots. It's from a herbalist, Ma, Blessing explained, her voice low. He said it will make Olga calmer, just a little bit each day. Amara's trembling hands took the jar. That Nite! A tiny pinch of the powder dissolved into Enkay's evening tea. He drank it without suspicion, his eyes fixed on the television. The next morning, Amara woke to find him still asleep, a profound silence filling the space usually punctuated by his demands. It worked. Over the next few days, Enkay's relentless energy waned. He came home earlier, complained of fatigue, spent more time resting. Amara, for the first time in months, could breathe. She began to regain a hint of color, a spark in her eyes. But the relief was short-lived. His fatigue deepened, accompanied by a tightening in his chest. "Maybe you should see a doctor," Amara suggested, a sudden fear gripping her. "I don't need a doctor," he snapped, but his voice was weaker. His breathing became shallow, punctuated by violent coughs. Amara stopped the herbs completely, but it was too late. One evening, Enkay collapsed in the hallway, gasping for air. "Help!" he choked. Amara frantically called an ambulance, tears streaming down her face. "Stay with me, Enkay," she screamed, shaking him. But it was too late. By the time the ambulance arrived, Enkay was gone. The Udo family, powerful and suspicious, demanded an autopsy. 2 police officers arrived at the mansion. "Mrs. Udo," one said, grim-faced, "we have reason to believe your husband was poisoned." Amara's blood ran cold. At the station, her hands cuffed, she faced the accusation. "We know about the herbs," the detective said. "The autopsy showed toxic compounds. We found the jar in your kitchen." "It wasn't poison," Amara cried desperately. "It was just supposed to calm him down, to make him less aggressive. I didn't know it would hurt him." Her face crumpled. "He was obsessed. I just wanted some peace. I didn't mean for him to die." But the detective and the world saw a cold, calculating murderer. The headlines screamed, "Billionaire's wife arrested for poisoning her husband. Black Widow." Even Innie, visiting her in the cell, looked devastated. "Amara, what happened? Did you really kill him?" Amara sobbed. "I didn't mean to, Innie. I didn't know it was poison." Her mother's call was brutal. "You've disgraced us. How could you kill your husband? You should have endured." Amara was alone, isolated, her hope crumbling. The courtroom buzzed. Amara, dubbed the Black Widow, kept her eyes down. Her lawyer, Ada, whispered, "Just tell the truth." But the prosecution painted her as a scheming killer. Ada presented Amara's abuse, the bruises, Innie's testimony of her fear. But it wasn't enough. The verdict? Guilty. Life in prison. As she was led away, Amara saw the Udo family, satisfied, triumphant. She had lost completely. In the stark silence of her prison cell, 6 months had melted into an indistinguishable gray. Her hands, once dreaming of canvases, were now scarred and rough, testament to a life spent surviving. Hope, once a flickering ember, seemed entirely extinguished. Then, footsteps echoed. "You have a visitor," the guard announced. It was Ifeanyi, a young lawyer, from the Innocence Project. "We found new evidence," Ifeanyi said, her voice gentle yet firm. "That might prove your innocence. We believe you were set up." A faint, painful thud in Amara's heart. Set up? By whom? This was the first spark of hope in an eternity. Amara agreed to fight. Ifeanyi's investigation dug deep, revealing inconsistencies in the official narrative. Amara recounted her desperate plea to Blessing for calming herbs. "She said it was from a herbalist in her village," Amara recalled, "but I never saw the person. Blessing brought the package herself." Ifeanyi's eyes narrowed. "I'm going to look into Blessing." The revelation was devastating, but Amara knew Ifeanyi was right. Too many loose ends. Ifeanyi and her team uncovered Blessing's convoluted past, periods of unexplained absence, whispers of hardship, a fierce privacy. A former housemaid mentioned Blessing becoming withdrawn after Amara left, then returning to her composed self. A pattern of betrayal and quiet revenge began to emerge. Ifeanyi returned, her expression grim. "I think Blessing may have had her own reasons for wanting Enkay dead," she stated. "She may have used you." She knew you were desperate, and she gave you those herbs, knowing exactly what they would do. Amara's heart burned with anger and betrayal. Why? Why would Blessing sacrifice her? Ifeani eventually traced Blessing to a small, run-down apartment on the city's outskirts. Blessing, her face a mask of indifference, let Ifeani in. "I've been reviewing Amara's case," Ifeani began. "She told me you gave her the herbal mixture." Blessing admitted it, claiming a village herbalist, but her evasiveness fueled Ifeani's suspicion. "Amara is facing life in prison," Ifeani pressed. "If there's anything you're not telling me, now is the time." After a long, tense silence, Blessing broke. "Enkay wasn't a good man," she whispered, tears glistening. "He hurt other people too. People like me." She recounted the night Enkay, in a drunken rage after Amara left, had assaulted her, threatening to ruin her life if she spoke. "Killing him was the only way I could be free," Blessing confessed, admitting she knew the herbs were poison. Blessing's confession changed everything. It was not Amara, but Blessing, who had orchestrated Enkay's death. "Are you willing to testify?" Ifeani asked. Blessing's fear was palpable, but after a long pause, she nodded. "I'll do it. I owe Amara that much." Ifeani's heart surged with hope. The truth was finally surfacing. Back in her cell, Amara reeled from the betrayal, but also a strange empathy. They had both been victims of Enkay. Blessing's testimony, combined with Ifeani's relentless evidence, overturned Amara's conviction. She walked out of prison, the sunlight a balm on her face, the air fresh and free. She had endured the unspeakable, faced unimaginable betrayal, and lost much. But she had fought, survived, and found redemption in the most unexpected of places. The city, once her cage, now welcomed her back, a testament to her unyielding spirit. Her story, though stained with tragedy, now carried a new melody, one of courage, communal responsibility, and the enduring human spirit that seeks justice and ultimately finds forgiveness, not necessarily for the perpetrator, but for the soul's own peace. If you enjoyed the story, then like, subscribe, and share this story with your loved ones. Also, tell us in the comments where you are watching from. Welcome to Africo Tales.